How do you do? We're about to unfold the story of Frankenstein. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. Well, we've warned you.
You've been warned. Welcome back to the Frankenstein Minute, the podcast where we dissect the Universal Frankenstein films 1 minute at a time. I'm Bill Evenson.
And I'm Tom Lang, and we are now at minute 51 of 1931's Frankenstein. A pivotal moment.
It's a big minute.
It's a big minute. It's an infamous minute for
And
a
it's a
number
whole
of reasons.
minute.
It's a whole minute now.
It didn't
Yeah,
used
it
to be.
It used to be a whole minute.
It didn't used to be this long.
No. Well, like I referenced a while back, I'd watched the VHS that I had from, 82 or something like that. And
Yeah.
a lot of this minute isn't there.
Yep.
And this,
I haven't seen it in so long, I don't know how much of this minute isn't there. So how much of this minute isn't there?
well, I guess we should probably discuss what happens before we discuss what didn't.
Good idea.
This
Because
is
that's how, yes, I've got my notes in chronological order, and the beginning of this minute has always been there.
Yes, it always has been.
Yeah.
It's, the monster and Maria play a little game
Mm-hmm.
of throwing daisies onto the water. It's a lovely little moment.
Yes.
It's probably the only nice moment the poor guy has thus far in his entire existence.
And, yep, I was going to say and going forward, but
And,
I guess
well,
we've got a lot of movies to get
there's
through.
There's a lot going forward, and he has his moments.
Yeah, he's grinning like an idiot.
Yes,
It's
he is.
real. It's
Yes.
believable. It's well executed.
Yes,
it's joy. He's experiencing just joy.
It's beautifully played, actually by both, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marilyn Harris does a great job as well. She
Yep.
seems like a very genuine child. I think we've talked about this in the past. She doesn't seem like a child actor.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes they seem kind of forced. She seems very genuine.
Yeah, we'll see some of that.
Oh,
in years
yes,
to
we
come.
will. Hello!
But her, even more so when you consider the conditions she was working under.
Right.
I don't know if we want to talk about that now or.
Well, we might as well because we're here.
We're here. This
We're
is
here.
the minute.
I mean, I think we've referenced it in the past that she had the world's worst stage mother.
Mm-hmm.
She was adopted by a couple.
I didn't even know that.
Apparently abusive.
Perfect.
She was, just a horrific stage mother. Apparently they needed to do a number of takes of the moment coming up that was edited, and her mother, do it again, do it again, do it again. So,
Yep.
not a good childhood. She did grow into adulthood and seemed to be okay.
Yep.
I've read a couple interviews with her. She seemed pretty put together.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and she passed away she lived a long life.
Yeah,
is
she was like
is she still with us,
97
or is
or
she
something like that.
She died like
yeah,
yesterday or something.
No, it was a while back, but she had a good, healthy, long life. Whale must have liked her because he had her in 4 of his films.
Oh yes, I think you've mentioned this before.
This one, and she's a brief, one line, I think, in Bride.
Okay.
And then she's also in Showboat and The Road Back. So
Okay.
he must have liked working with her.
Yeah.
And he did that a lot. Actors that he liked, he would cast again and again.
Mm-hmm.
He delighted in Dwight Fry. We've talked about that.
Yep.
And so he had him back whenever he could.
Mm-hmm.
So
There you go.
There you go. That's Marilyn Harris. They're throwing their flowers on the water, and they run out of flowers.
And he looks down at his hands and sees there's no flowers in them. That's what he's doing there, right?
Yeah,
When he looks
yeah,
at his
he
hands. That's the
realizes,
way I
like,
always interpret
Yeah.
that.
It's like, oh, well, what else can we?
What else can we throw?
What else is pretty that we can make float?
Yep.
I assume that's the interpretation that it was intended.
Mm-hmm. Seems like it.
Yeah. Now, what happened in the original prints up until, I guess it was 1987 when they restored it, is you saw the monster reaching for her, and then it cut to the next scene. There was an abrupt edit.
Yeah.
Which always is written about as having implied far worse than what you actually had seen.
Yeah, it's more menacing, I would think.
Yes.
Is about, I would think that's the only thing you can definitely say
Well, it's
definitively.
yeah.
Definitely say definitively.
Yeah.
It's more menacing to just have him be reaching and then what happened. I don't know.
You don't
It
know
was
what
bad
happened,
news.
and of course the next time you see her, it implies far worse.
But I don't even think it really. You knew what he did.
Well, you did, but I think the implications were there for people who
suppose.
weren't necessarily that attuned to it or paying attention to it.
Yeah.
that
That's true.
could interpret it in a far more sinister way.
That's true. You could picture him maybe holding her under the water or something awful.
Right. Well, what happens is in 1987, this was long censored footage was finally restored, and he picks her up and is about to puts her in the water as if she were another Daisy.
Right.
She can't swim, evidently. Living next to a lake, that's a good idea.
Yep. Daddy just going to check the traps and leave the kid next to the pond. Yeah. Go play with the kitty.
Yep. And subsequently she drowns.
Yeah.
The monster is absolutely horrified.
Right.
And doesn't quite know how to react. He staggers away, looking at his hands.
Yeah.
Like, what did I just do? What happened?
Right. That seems to be what that one is too, to me. Yeah. He looks at his hands twice in this minute.
Yeah, and he almost kind of is wringing them as he runs off.
Almost
And
like,
there's the last shot of it is kind of undercranked, which gives it a vaguely comic effect, which I don't think was intended. I've often wondered why that was undercranked.
That's I agree. I agree with everything you just said, but I think that they just didn't think that way back in those days. It was so common to be undercranked.
Right.
Maybe
You'll see that in a lot of like fight scenes and
yeah,
things.
right. They thought it worked as an effect.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No. It's now of course we all relate it to the Benny Hill show. So.
Kind of. Yeah. Right.
It's
I was
Gilligan's
going to say
Island
like
or something.
Keystone Cops or something where they're doing a car chase at
right.
15 miles an hour and they make it look like they're going 40.
I think there's a couple shots missing still.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
It looks a little choppy. There's some continuity issues.
Well, I guess I think that maybe that's deliberate because Whale edits that way sometimes.
He does sometimes edit that way, but this time it's more abrupt than usual.
Yeah, it's odd.
He does have mismatched shots frequently. Generally they work. You're usually willing to forgive them, but here I believe like shots of her going under, things like that are missing.
Yeah,
which I think were probably edited out in 31.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you got to think there must be a shot of that, or else why would they do a retake?
Right.
What on earth could they possibly have to redo?
Right.
Given what we see.
Yeah.
Toss her in the water. Done. Let's go.
Let's move on. Yeah, because by the time
unless he couldn't see her, maybe because his back was turned too much.
That's possibly because he is blocking.
He's kind of right.
That's possible, but I do believe that there are a few shots missing.
Makes sense.
It looks a little choppy, and certainly the picture quality is degraded a little bit from the rest of the film.
That's true too.
Even when we saw the new 35 millimeter print last fall, beautiful print. It looked like it was shot yesterday, but there was a slight difference in the grain pattern and the quality of it.
I suppose. Is there? Why would that be? I guess it's just there was only one copy.
It was probably
found somewhere that wasn't
the
cared
best
for,
they were able to find. A movie like The Coconuts with the Marx Brothers was pieced together for the longest time. Again, up until sometime in the 80s, I believe. The first reel was a mess. Very scratchy, fuzzy looking. Oftentimes this is all they can.
It's all they can dig up.
Find, yeah.
Well, it's like I'm sure I've mentioned before, The Ghoul.
The Ghoul.
I used to think The Ghoul was really creepy until they found a nice copy of it. Now it's kind of overly bright.
I watched them both recently, back to back. It's a Czechoslovakian, 16 millimeter print with subtitles.
Yep. And like I at least one copy I had, they just zoomed in.
Oh, okay.
So you couldn't see
Couldn't see the subtitles?
No, that's not right. You could. I'm sorry. They just blacked it out. It was just a black strip over it.
Yeah, it does. It's very contrasty and scratchy
and creepy.
Yeah, and then now there's another restoration of it that looks like it was again filmed yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's a decent film, but it's not. It doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't grab you like that one where they're when you're just it's like I suppose there's a sort of a haunted house-ness to all these movies,
right?
Where you're going down a creepy dark hallway and the lighting isn't very good.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Deliberately, yeah. It's moody.
Yeah.
Moody.
Unlike this scene we're talking about, which is actually really bright.
Broad daylight.
And it's kind of weird, and I'm sure I mentioned this last week, but we recorded last week's podcast over a week ago, so I don't remember exactly. But last week, I'm sure I mentioned the monster it's weird to see him in this bright light.
Brightly lit, yeah.
It seems unusual.
Well, we did discuss that, and I mentioned too that the makeup though holds up extremely well, which it doesn't in later sequels.
That's right.
Certainly, the next two it looks good. After that, it starts to look like someone's Halloween makeup.
Something changes. I'm not sure what it is.
Well,
we'll get there.
I have a few theories.
Yep. there's a few things that change, I guess.
Well, and then going back to when we saw it in the theater last fall, people laughed at this a little bit. There was a little chuckle.
At which part?
When he throws her in, and when he staggers away.
Okay, I hadn't remembered that.
And I couldn't quite figure out why. I asked someone, and they said they didn't know.
Well, I have a theory.
I do too, but go ahead.
All right, I was going to say Young Frankenstein.
That's exactly what I was
Because that scene's great in Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. They're throwing something in a well, right?
Yeah.
We just saw this recently, too.
We did,
I've already forgotten.
Yeah.
And then, Peter Boyle's reaction to what else can we
throw
in? And he looks up.
His eyes,
that's
kind of breaks the fourth wall briefly.
Yeah, that's. Or does he look at the camera?
He kind of does briefly. Yeah, it's one of the few times he and Marty Feldman will break the fourth wall on occasion.
Well, we'll get there too if I have anything to say about it.
No, I'm on board with that.
I think we should pretend to argue about it for the next 10 years.
Okay, all right, we'll talk about. All right, we'll do that.
So one of the things that's restored.
But also, I was going to say one of the other things that why I think people laugh.
I thought you is
because they're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
It's not, you don't see children getting killed frequently especially in older movies. So there is a little bit of a shock, and there's a little bit of ill ease with it.
Yeah. Is this really what's happening?
Yeah.
Maybe even to the point where a modern audience just can't believe that they would try to do this at that time.
That was, I think,
like I'm watching an old movie. I know what to expect, and then something truly shocking happens.
Right.
Although it isn't. It's hard to think of it as shocking now.
Well, now because it's so it's become just a soundbite in my head, and
exactly. It is part of you.
Yeah,
I can see it on you.
Yes. I'll wipe that off.
I think I've mentioned before in the Belong Dead Studios, I have set up the Frankenstein monster collectible 12-inch figure.
Oh, the sideshow.
And it has the flower,
yes,
and that my son, when I moved in, when we were moving stuff into the studio, pointed out the flower. He remembers that scene. It's a memorable scene, and probably for a kid.
It's a pivotal scene. And also last week I mentioned that it wasn't in the shooting script, but I didn't finish my thought. Is that it's not in the shooting script at this point in the film. It comes much later, after we've seen all of the scenes
after
coming
the
up.
Windmill, after the credits.
Yeah. It's like the Marvel universe. it's
the
post credit
or whatever post credit thing.
Little stinger at the end.
Yep.
No, it's after Elizabeth and Henry have a scene coming up.
Okay.
It's after that. It makes more sense.
That's really interesting, because as we talk over the coming weeks about how things are set up, I think it works really well. I think the next few minutes that we're going to talk about are very well paced.
Oh, it makes much more sense where it is now versus in the script.
Yeah.
It's in the same point in the Flory script, but it plays out like it does in the edited version.
Okay.
Is that he reaches for her and it cuts away.
But he reaches for her after they run out of flowers.
No,
and
there's no flowers.
There's
he
no
just
flowers.
looks at her. She just talks to him briefly. And unmotivated, he chucks her in the lake.
All right.
Which kind of gives you an idea of what that film,
the Flory Frankenstein,
would have been like. I don't know,
would have been a classic.
Yeah.
We'd be begrudgingly talking about it minute by minute. Well, here we go again.
Oh God.
Let's watch this. Let's watch Lugosi in his wig. Chuck her in the water again. Yeah. One of the things I think is interesting that is it has to be in the restored part is she says, "You're hurting me."
Yes.
That doesn't reflect well on the monster. Having her say that.
No, it doesn't.
But I guess we sort of assume they're playing. And he doesn't either. He doesn't think she means it all that much, or he doesn't understand.
I don't think he understands what she's saying.
He might simply not understand her. Yeah, we don't get a lot of impression that he understands.
He's only a few days old.
He's only a few. Remember?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
He seems to understand. Sit down with an accompanying. I'm doing it now. I
haven't
put my notes down so I can do it.
For those of you following at home.
If you're not watching the video version, you're really missing out. No, there's no.
Someone
video
actually asked why don't we do that?
Why don't we do a video version? Well, we'll work on
put
that.
it on YouTube.
Yes,
You just put up a camera and you want to see it sitting in the studio.
Want to see what the studio really looks like? You don't want to know.
We'll post some pictures.
He understands sit down, and I think that's it. He understands pain. I mean, he doesn't get a lot out of people.
No, he doesn't.
So far,
he doesn't
he's
get a lot
gotten
of feedback.
pain and some flowers.
Yeah, and I think also it's a matter of he's clumsy, doesn't know his own strength, doesn't know his limitations.
Absolutely.
It's like a little child, and that's kind of how Karloff played it. I think he and Whale talked about that, the sort of the physicality of like a 5-year-old multiplied by whatever for the strength of 10 men. But the mental capacity of like a 5-year-old.
Does he have the strength of 10 men in this one?
Well, Henry says he does. But
Okay.
I don't know how
yeah,
he
I guess
knows
he does.
that.
I guess he does.
How
we don't see any evidence of it.
Not,
I don't
not
think.
in this one. We do later on in some of the sequels.
Oh, in Bride, he's already got super strength.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, he has the strength to be able to do something he clearly could not do in this one.
True. Very true.
I guess I'll spoil it.
No, well.
Well, maybe we don't spoil it, but they were able to keep him chained up in the. I guess we'll talk about that next year.
Well, I think
on
that's
Frankenstein Minute.
That's part of a learning curve.
That could be too. Sure.
That's my theory on that one.
Ah.
So stay tuned in about a year and a half.
Something like that. Surely it probably would be. Okay, so
getting back to when the mother wanted him to throw her in the water again.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't swim very well in reality. Marilyn Harris could not swim. She'd gotten a few lessons a few days before, but she had some difficulty with it. There was some issue. They needed to do a second take. She didn't want to, and so James Whale went up to her and said, "Listen, I'll give you anything you want to do it again."
What do you want? What does 11?
I think she's 8.
8?
I think she's 8.
Yeah, what does an 8-year-old girl want more than anything in the whole world?
Well, do you know what she wanted?
Yeah.
She wanted a dozen hard-boiled eggs.
1 dozen hard-boiled eggs. Not even deviled eggs.
Nope,
just hard-boiled eggs.
Well, because her mother wouldn't let her have those sort of things.
I suppose, yeah, because it'd make her too chubby to be of any use.
Yes, you're dead to me now.
So here's my problem with that.
But then Whale gave her 2 dozen.
Is that yes? My problem with that is that story. I'm thinking by the time we heard it from her, this is just my own theory. I'm making this up out of whole cloth. It's one of those stories that change over time, and that maybe in real life she asked for a hard-boiled egg and he gave her half a dozen. Because she asked for a dozen and he gave her 2 dozen. I suppose it's possible, but she didn't eat 2 dozen hard-boiled eggs.
Are you calling her a liar?
That's right.
There are so
I'm
many,
taking a stand.
You're first.
That's right.
There are so many.
Come at me, Marilyn Harris fans.
Bring it on. There's so many legends and the whole thing of Lugosi turning the roll down.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not.
These are good stories, and they don't matter. They are true, whether or not they are true.
Or Karloff being discovered in the commissary, and things like that.
Yeah.
That just they're good stories, and that's what they are.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're lucky to be able to talk about this. It's a period of history in which that sort of myth making can easily take hold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I say that. Anything older than this is too. You can't really buy anything anybody said before about yesterday.
Yeah.
You can't buy anything anybody says today either.
No,
Never
really.
mind. Forget it. I don't know what I'm talking about. But what we do end up with this editing that you're talking about, I think is interesting because so he throws her in, then they cut to an angle where he's kneeling by the water and he's reaching into the water and you can't see it, but from the sound and from what he's doing, it looks like he's slapping the water.
Yes.
Which I think is really effective.
Yes.
It really shows that helplessness, that childishness.
Yes.
Is that the right word I'm looking
for? Yeah, childish, I guess. Not
childishness, childlike, whatever.
Yeah.
Just that slapping the water. And it also reinforces, panic, reinforces that he doesn't have any idea what to do at all.
Right. Yeah,
It doesn't occur to him to just go in the water.
Yeah.
Then they cut to a shot of him standing up, which looks like it might even be part of that same shot, but they just cut out the middle of it.
Well, that's where I think there's a few things missing.
Right.
There's like
so then
bubbling up, and things like that.
Right.
They're probably in 31 even said no.
Yeah, this is too much.
That's too much.
Yeah, I keep thinking of this Doctor Who episode. This is not a new thing to listeners of this podcast. But there's a Doctor.
Change the name to the
My
Doctor
friends
Who.
are now going, oh, here we go. He's going to talk about Deadly Assassin. Yes, of course I'm going to talk about Deadly Assassin. One of the most famous missing parts of a Doctor Who episode was on when it first aired. It was episode called The Deadly Assassin. I can't remember. It was part 2.
I just read an article about this.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead, though.
So they're in strangely enough the Doctor Who and his opponent are in a simulation, a computer simulated world, strangely enough called the Matrix. I got to mention that just because we all know the Matrix. Anyways, the villain is holding the Doctor underneath the water, drowning him.
Right.
And Tom Baker is bubbling, and it was as bad as you could imagine. And the famous, oh Lord, now I can't think of her name. It was a famous Oh, Lord. I don't even know the story I'm telling. But anyways, famously, the complaint was lodged, and
Was it Mary Whitehouse?
Mary Whitehouse, thank you very much.
Yes.
Mary Whitehouse complained and famously got a few seconds cut out of it. And so if you buy the DVD now, it's actually reconstructed. They've tried to reconstruct based on the timing of the soundtrack to what the approximate frames look like. So yes, nothing to do with Frankenstein. We can cut all this out.
No,
but drowning somebody is scary.
It's a visceral thing, yeah.
And drowning just seems horrifying.
It does.
Yeah. That's one for me. Ugh.
Well, did you see the Blade Runner sequel?
I have seen I've seen most of it.
Oh, one of the major character drowns towards the climax. I
haven't gotten that far.
Too much. But,
no, it's ruined.
It's a very harrowing.
Yeah.
I've watched it a number of times, and it's a very harrowing moment.
Yeah, drowning just seems like
because the actor is underwater while they're doing this. And it's uncomfortable.
It's one of those. Whenever a character's underwater, not always, but oftentimes, I'll hold my breath. Does everybody do that? I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
That I was going to mention one of those Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies, but I'm afraid you're going to kick me off the podcast if I mention those again.
That's it. That's it.
Remember that Mummy movie he made? Was really good.
That was a huge hit.
So then we cut to a shot of him standing up. Almost looks like he's stepping out of the water, but obviously he isn't. He's just stepping away. He's stepping up from the edge of the water. Yeah, and you already mentioned he's frantic at this point.
Frantic. He's looking at his hands. He wrings his hands.
Are these like willow trees he's walking through or something? They remind me of. And so he's like he's kind of that adds to it too. Sort of a
staggering through them,
going almost like through a little jungle.
Yeah, it just sort of adds to the frenzy of
exactly
his confusion, his disorientation. Yeah, he has no idea what just happened.
Yeah,
he has no concept of life or death at this point. He doesn't love dead and hate living yet because he doesn't know what they are.
Well, and if anybody's going to not get it, he would be the guy.
He's the guy.
So there you go.
Yes.
All right. So then we cut to, or are we done with that scene yet?
I think we've pretty well nailed it in the last 20 minutes.
Okay, good. Because I just want to mention
it dissolves to the next scene
to a street dance.
Yes,
that's the celebration for Henry's upcoming nuptials.
Yes.
And I have something I could say about that, and I hadn't decided whether I should say it in this minute. But it's pretty much the same thing in the next minute.
Yeah, the next minute is the bulk of it is that.
Yeah. So we can totally this will be a nice teaser.
Yes.
Come back next week to find out what I have to say about these
same Frankenstein
silly people dancing in the street.
Same Frankenstein.